We hung a small flag in our window for my son, who was deployed overseas. The next day, the neighbor yelled across the street, "This isn't a war zone. Take that patriotic propaganda down." I tried to stay calm. But when a care package we mailed was returned, torn open and empty, I knew something was wrong. Turns out, the post office had flagged our address for suspicious activity. Someone had filed multiple complaints, using our names. The return label? Traced back to one place, his porch. My name's Mike. I live in Evansville, Indiana. Born and raised here. It's a small place, mostly good folks, but you get a few rotten ones like anywhere else. My boy Jesse joined the army last year. It was one of those bittersweet moments. Proud of him, scared for him. Before he left, my wife Darlene came up with the idea of hanging a small flag in the front window. Just a little sign of support. Not a huge pole, nothing flashy. Just a quiet reminder that our son was serving his country. We put it up the morning he shipped out. It felt right. Like we were sending him a piece of home he could hold on to, even from far away. The next day, I was outside watering the lawn when I heard it. "This isn't a war zone. Take that patriotic propaganda down." I looked up. It was Mark, the neighbor across the street. Now, Mark had always been off. Never waved. Never said hello. Just sat on his porch smoking, drinking cheap beer, watching everyone with this bitter look. He moved in about a year ago after the old Collins family moved out. People said he was from up north somewhere. Didn't matter to me. You leave folks alone, I leave you alone. That's how it should be. But now he was shouting at me, in front of the whole damn street. I clenched my jaw and didn't say a word. Just turned back to the hose. I wasn't going to start a scene. Especially not when the flag wasn't even about him. It was about Jesse. About us. Darlene saw the whole thing from the window. Later, she asked if we should take the flag down. "No," I said. "That flag's staying right where it is." We didn't think much more about it. Figured Mark would get over it. We were wrong. About 2 weeks later, weird stuff started happening. Our mail started arriving late, sometimes not at all. Packages we ordered showed up looking crushed or opened. One time, a box of socks I ordered online came with half the pairs missing. It didn't feel random. Then we got the call from Jesse. He sounded pissed and hurt all at once. "Did you guys send me a care package?" "Yeah, a big one. Snacks, socks, magazines, photos, all kinds of stuff," Darlene said, confused. "Well, it got returned. Torn open. Empty. All that was left was the letter you wrote. And even that was shredded." Darlene started crying right there. I told him I'd get to the bottom of it. Next morning, I marched down to the post office, package slip in hand. The clerk at the counter got real nervous when I asked what happened. He mumbled something about suspicious activity and address flagged. Flagged? I asked what the hell that meant. The manager was called out. He took me into his office, shut the door, lowered his voice. "Look," he said. "We've had several complaints filed against this address. Different names. Same story. Packages being used to ship suspicious items. We had to open them." I stared at him. "My son's socks are suspicious?" He looked ashamed but didn't back down. Said it was protocol. I demanded to see the complaint forms. He refused. Said they were under investigation. But when he showed me the torn-up care package, I noticed the return label. Handwritten. Sloppy. It clicked. I had seen that ugly handwriting before. Last summer, there was a petition to stop a new gas station from being built at the corner. Mark had signed it. His writing looked just like the one on the label. Same crooked R, same funny slant on the number 7. I took pictures of the label. Then I went home and dug out the old petition we still had in a drawer. Matched. Mark had filed fake complaints about us. Using our names. making it look like we were criminals. He made the post office rip apart the package meant for Jessie, like it was garbage. I was boiling. But if Mark wanted dirty, I could do dirty too. Smarter. And way worse. First, I did some digging. Turns out, Mark was renting. Month-to-month lease. And it just so happened that his landlord, Mr. Fletcher, lived right here in town. I found his number easy enough in the county directory. I gave him a call. Played it real polite. "Hey, sir. Just wanted to let you know your tenant's been filing false reports using our names. Caused federal mail to get tampered with. Pretty serious crime, you know." Dead silence on the line. Then Mr. Fletcher asked me if I could send him proof. You bet your ass I could. I emailed him the photos of the handwriting match. The package. Even a screen recording of our security camera catching Mark lurking around our mailbox late one night. Mr. Fletcher didn't say much after that. Just thanked me and hung up. 3 days later, I saw a "for rent" sign go up in Mark's front yard. But that wasn't enough for me. No. Mark didn't just mess with my mail. He hurt Jessie. He hurt my wife. He tried to humiliate us. I wasn't done. I went down to the post office again, but this time I wasn't alone. I brought my brother-in-law, Tony, who just so happens to be a lawyer. Not a fancy one, but good enough to scare small-town officials. Tony told them we were filing formal complaints with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. That's federal level. Real serious. Suddenly, the postmaster's whole attitude changed. They gave us copies of the complaint forms. Redacted, but not enough to hide that the listed phone number matched the burner phone Mark used when he first moved here, something I had found on an old community board post. We gave all of that to the police. And I made sure word got out around town. Quietly. Carefully. Funny thing about small towns, once your name is mud, there's no cleaning it off. Mark was gone within the month. His porch sat empty for weeks. Then the house got rented out to a sweet old lady who bakes pies and always waves. The flag? It's still in our window. And we sent Jessie an even bigger care package. This time, it made it to him just fine. After Mark moved out, it felt like a weight had lifted. Neighbors who barely talked to us before started waving again. Even our mail came without problems. Things felt normal. For about 2 weeks. Then one night, right around 1 a.m., I woke up to flashing red and blue lights outside. Darlene grabbed my arm, terrified. I pulled on jeans and went outside. There were 2 squad cars parked across the street. And right in front of our driveway? A black pickup truck. Old. Rusty. It was smoking like someone had blown out the engine. Cops were questioning a guy sitting on the curb, handcuffed. He was drunk out of his mind, shouting nonsense about fake patriots and deserving what's coming. It didn't take long to figure it out. It was Mark. He had come back. Apparently, after getting evicted, Mark hadn't left town. He had been crashing with some lowlifes 2 streets over. Drinking, stewing, getting angrier. And that night, he got drunk enough to try something stupid. Real stupid. The cops pulled me aside. Turns out, Mark had rigged his truck with homemade fireworks and was planning to throw them at our house. Light the porch on fire. Send a message, he said. But he was so hammered he didn't even make it up the driveway. His truck backfired and died in the middle of the road. One of the neighbors had heard the commotion and called the cops before he could even step onto our lawn. They found matches in his pocket. And a bag full of fireworks stuffed under the passenger seat. If that truck hadn't crapped out when it did, there's no telling what could have happened. Maybe we would have been sleeping while the house caught fire. Maybe we wouldn't have made it out. I stood there shaking as they loaded Mark into the back of the squad car. And you know what he did? He looked right at me through the window and smiled. That greasy, smug smile. I thought I was done with him. I thought he was just a bitter coward. But now he had crossed a line I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just about pride anymore. It was about safety. About family. About survival. The next morning, I got a call from Tony, my brother-in-law. "You need to come down to the courthouse," he said. Mark was already trying to wriggle out of charges. His public defender was claiming it was all a misunderstanding, a drunken prank gone wrong, no real harm done. Bullshit. But without real damage, without the house actually burning, there was a chance he'd just get probation. Maybe some fines. Maybe some community service. And then he'd be back. Maybe next time he'd bring something worse than fireworks. I wasn't going to wait for that. So I got to work. I started gathering everything. Security footage from that night. Witness statements from 3 different neighbors. The old evidence of the mail tampering. The fake complaints he made using our names. A letter from Jesse himself, about the stolen care package and what it meant to him while overseas. I didn't just want Mark charged. I wanted the whole town to see him for what he was. A coward. A criminal. A disgrace. After Mark's arrest, I thought maybe, it was over. But I should have known better. Guys like him don't just go away quietly. A week after his court hearing, where he pled not guilty, we started getting strange phone calls. First it was hang-ups. Then heavy breathing. Then muffled threats. "You're gonna get what's coming." The caller ID was blocked every time. At first, Darlene wanted to ignore it. But the way my gut twisted every time the phone rang told me it wasn't nothing. I went down to the police station and filed a report. Gave them everything. That's when the officer leaned over the desk and said, "You're not gonna believe this, but it might be coming from inside the jail." Turns out, Mark wasn't just sitting quietly in a cell. He was using his phone privileges, or getting other inmates to use theirs, to harass us. Trying to scare us. Trying to make us back down before the trial. I saw red. Not only had he tried to torch our house, he was still reaching through the bars, trying to terrorize my family. It wasn't enough to just get him sentenced. I wanted every stone he ever stood on ripped out from under him. So I made a decision. I called in some favors. Old friends. Folks who owed me from back when I helped them fix their trucks, rebuild their fences, look after their kids. Evansville might be small, but loyalty here runs deep when you earn it. I told them what was happening. Showed them the evidence. Let them hear one of the recorded phone calls. By the next week, the whole town knew the truth about Mark. He didn't just lose his rental house. He lost his job at the auto parts warehouse. His truck, impounded and eventually auctioned off. His so-called friends? They cut ties. Even the drunks 2 streets over didn't want to touch him. He became a pariah, even from behind bars. But that still wasn't enough for me. Not after what he tried to do to Jesse. To Darlene. To us. So when the trial date came, I wasn't satisfied just giving a statement. I showed up with a binder. Thick. Heavy. Full of everything Mark had done. The fake complaints. The stolen mail. The threats. The arson attempt. The jailhouse calls. I sat there in that courtroom, stared Mark down across the aisle. He wouldn't even look at me. For the first time since this all started, he looked small. Not angry. Not smug. Just beaten. But it still wasn't over yet. Because just when I thought the trial would wrap up cleanly, Mark's lawyer made one last move. A desperate, nasty move that put my whole plan at risk. When Mark's lawyer stood up in court that day, I could feel the change in the room. He wasn't cocky. He wasn't polite. He was desperate. "My client has been under severe emotional distress caused by the harassment from Mr. Benson. That's me. And his family," the lawyer said, looking straight at the judge. I nearly laughed out loud. But then he pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of complaints, fake ones, that Mark had filed against us. He tried to make it seem like we had been bullying him. That's when it hit me. Mark wasn't just fighting to stay out of jail. He was setting up a countersuit. He was trying to flip the story. Make it seem like the flag, the calls to the landlord, the talk around town, all of it, was some giant vendetta we launched against him. And if he pulled it off, we could end up dragged into a civil lawsuit. Years of headaches. Money we didn't have. Jesse's name dragged through the mud. It made my stomach turn. But remember, I didn't come unprepared. When the judge asked if I had anything to say, I stood up. I didn't hire a lawyer to talk for me. I spoke for myself. And I laid it all out, the tampered mail. The false reports. The threat calls traced back to the jail. The plan to throw fireworks at our house. Witness statements from half the block. Jesse's letter from overseas, explaining what that stolen care package meant to him. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just told the truth, plain and hard. The judge listened without saying a word. Then he leaned forward and asked the bailiff to hand over the background check the prosecution had just gotten back. I didn't know about that part. Turns out, Mark wasn't some poor, misunderstood neighbor who snapped. He had a sealed record from 2 states away. Prior convictions for harassment, mail tampering, and 1 case of arson against an ex-girlfriend. They unsealed everything right there in court. The whole room shifted. Mark's own lawyer turned pale. The judge's voice got sharp, cold. Mark wasn't a victim. He was a repeat offender. A liar. A danger. The judge denied every motion Mark's lawyer had filed. Said Mark was lucky he wasn't facing even more charges now. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. But that wasn't the end. Because Mark, the coward, had one last trick left up his sleeve. And this time? It almost worked. 2 days after the court hearing where his sealed records got dragged into the light, things went quiet. No strange phone calls. No creepy letters. No flashing lights outside our window. For the first time in months, Darlene and I slept through the night without waking up in a cold sweat. It didn't last. One afternoon, while I was fixing the front gate, Darlene came running outside. She had her phone in her hand. Her face was ghost white. "It's Jesse," she said, shaking. I grabbed the phone. Jesse's voice was tight. Angry. "Dad, what the hell is going on? Why am I getting emails saying you're under investigation for elder abuse?" I stood there stunned. "What are you talking about, son?" He forwarded the emails. Sure enough, there they were. Nasty, official-looking messages claiming that I was being looked at by state services for elderly neglect of my own mother, Jesse's grandma. Problem was, Jesse's grandma had been dead for 3 years. Someone was trying to light a fire under my own son. Trying to make him doubt us. Trying to drive a wedge into my own damn family. I knew exactly who it was. Mark. Even sitting in jail, awaiting sentencing, he had found some backdoor way to mess with us. The emails were sent from a burner address. Looked like they were trying to make it seem real. I guess he figured Jesse, stressed overseas, would panic and maybe cut ties. Maybe turn against us. That way, when sentencing came around, if Jesse didn't testify, or didn't speak up, the judge might go easier on Mark. It was pathetic. And it almost worked. But Jesse isn't stupid. After he calmed down, he said something that stuck with me. "Whatever this is, it just proves you're right. He's a coward." Darlene and I sat down that night and wrote Jesse a long email explaining everything. We attached all the court papers, too. By the end of the week, Jesse sent a sworn letter to the prosecutor's office. In it, he laid it all out, what the flag meant. What the stolen package did to his morale overseas. How Mark's harassment hurt not just us, but him too. It was strong. Honest. The kind of letter that hits a judge right between the eyes. But still, I wasn't satisfied. Because even though we had him trapped, even though sentencing was coming fast, I wanted to make sure Mark never forgot whose life he tried to destroy. And whose life he failed to touch in the end. So I set one final plan in motion. And it was going to be public. Real public. Sentencing day finally came. I woke up early that morning. Sat on the porch drinking coffee. Watching the flag in our window flutter in the breeze. Thinking about Jessie. Thinking about everything Mark had tried to take from us. Not just the package. Not just our pride. But our peace. Our safety. Our trust. Today wasn't just about punishment. It was about showing him he lost. The courthouse was packed. Word had gotten around town about what Mark did. Neighbors I hadn't talked to in months were sitting in the back rows. Folks from Jessie's old school. People from the post office. Even Mr. Fletcher, the landlord who kicked Mark out, showed up. They all wanted to see it end. When the judge walked in, the whole room went dead silent. Mark was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit. Wrists cuffed. Ankles chained. He looked smaller than ever. Pale. Sweaty. Eyes darting around like a trapped rat. I didn't blink. When it came time for victim impact statements, the prosecutor asked if anyone wanted to speak. I stood up. So did Darlene. And right behind us? Half the damn town. One by one, people stood, telling the judge what Mark had done. How he poisoned a community. How he tried to tear a family apart. Jessie's letter was read out loud, every word heavy and sharp. You could see Mark shrink into himself with every word. Like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Good. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it short. I stared right at him. You tried to scare us. You tried to break us. You even tried to turn my own son against me. But we're still standing. And you're the one in chains. I paused. And Jessie? He's still fighting for this country you spit on. You lost, Mark. You lost everything. I sat back down. The judge didn't waste time. He listed every charge one by one: harassment, filing false reports, tampering with mail, attempted arson, witness intimidation. Then he dropped the hammer. 12 years in state prison. No parole for at least 9. Mark's lawyer tried one last time to argue for leniency. The judge shut him down cold. You're a danger to good people, the judge said. You've earned every day you're about to serve. Then he turned to the bailiff. Take him away. Mark didn't even lift his head. The chains clanked as they dragged him out. As we left the courthouse, the sun was shining. The flag was still up in our window. And Jessie's latest care package had already made it to him, safe, unopened, and full of letters, photos, and love. Mark thought he could break us. Instead, he broke himself. And we made damn sure he'd remember that for the rest of his miserable life.